Welcome to Lovesick Podcast, where we dive into health, wellness, and relationships and their impact on the world. Come be a part of the discussion. Join our community by following us on YouTube, Instagram, and listening wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome back. Welcome back to Lovesick, I should say. Or just welcome back. I am your host, Jada, and joining me is Michael and Dorothea. And today we are very happy to announce an awesome guest that we have. His name is Dean Koocher, and he is the co-founder of Kidstream. If you ever, I'm fangirling right here, and I'll say why. Because first of all, hello. Then we'll get into the fangirling part. Welcome. I'm excited because I have two children, and they're 7 and 8. And as a mother, I'm jumping right in, sorry. But as a mother, you know, I'm very conscious about like what is on TV, what we watch. I mean, you can throw on a cartoon and think it's fine, or throw on, you know, a kid show and think it's fine. But the thing I like about the stuff I've seen out of Kidstream is that I feel okay turning the TV on, and if I have to go cook, I'm not listening to make sure, like, oh my God, what are they talking about in there? And and I feel like that my kids are getting something out of it as well, because it goes beyond entertainment. It's entertaining, but it's also learning. I think there's a lot of representation there, which is what I really do love about it. And I think that, you know, for parents who are very, you know, are very conscious about putting their kids in front of the media, or, you know, watching TV or having devices or doing certain things. I think that you guys have nailed it big time. So thank you.
It's safe television.
Yes.
Safe. That's the word for kids.
Well,
and educational.
Jada, Dorothy, and Michael, thank you first for having me. And I think you're right on. That's a great lead in. we didn't rehearse that, but you're so right. I mean, I think what parents and caregivers don't realize is that some things that kids like aren't good for them. Even if they look kind of sweet and innocent, they're not necessarily enriching or maybe even harmful, the way they can kind of cause children to become almost addicted to them and have behaviors that you might not expect. But what we try to do is we have a few principles that we pick content by. And content, I mean, you know, TV shows, mostly series. Some are short, some are longer. As I was telling Michael, they come from all over the world: New Zealand, Australia, a lot from Europe, England, Canada, and a lot here from the US. But we want them to be safe. That's one of the first things. No violence, no mean-spirited humor, enriching, so that they get something out of that. We have shows that are about science and technology and music and dance and movement and fitness and eating habits, but they're all kind of built into entertaining kid shows, because you have to be entertaining to get kids to even watch them. You can't fool kids. They won't watch something if it's not, you know, entertaining and well made.
True.
And diversity, you know, we look for diverse characters and also diverse formats, you know, things that are made differently, different things. I was saying, we have a lot of puppets, and along with a lot of animation, live action, some hybrids. And we really like high production values. There's a lot of stuff you'll see that are just, you know, they can be good or not so good, that are put together. You know, YouTube is a creator-driven platform, so you can put anything up you want. Some stuff's really good, and some stuff might not be, because there's really no barometer to how you get up there. We take stuff that's a real high production value. We value the creators. I used to work for a couple of big show creators as their agent. One was the creator of the Teletubbies, and I learned a lot about working for her and Wood, and also working for other creators. Magnus Gevin, the creator from LazyTown, Martin Bainton, the creator out of New Zealand, very famous creator. And when you really understand how important those people are and what they put into their series, we really value that. So when we want to bring something, we want to really feel good about it. We want you to feel, as a customer or a caregiver, that you have peace of mind knowing you're there with Kidstream and what they're watching.
Yeah, Dean, I want to kind of jump on that. For you, what motivated you to go in this direction, and what is kind of the mission statement?
Good question. Yeah. Well, I had been in kids television, kind of fell into it in the 90s when a friend of mine asked me to come help him start a kids entertainment company. And I was actually in big corporate business, and I really got into it and started working. One of our first clients created, after a couple of years after we opened the door, created the Teletubbies, and that was just a real big ride for us, big brand, hit show. And then I got in. After that, I ended up working for another creator, this one I mentioned from LazyTown, and he created a show, and I worked for him. So I was in that business. And my co-founder and I, Jordan Jadenkin, who was also working at LazyTown at the time, had always said, we want to start a business at some point together. We were traveling together. He's a little younger than I am, but we have complementary skills. And after LazyTown was sold, we decided, let's open up a company. And then suddenly this streaming thing started to happen. It had already started to happen a little bit. Netflix was in business when we were still there at LazyTown, but suddenly you started to have these ability to open things. And one of the big cable networks approached Jordan and said, hey, can you make us a channel? And we just jumped into it. So it wasn't something we had always envisioned, but we had an opportunity. And we've always believed that there's great kids shows that aren't being shown here in the US, especially because the US has some very big name channels that dominate, and they make their own shows a lot. Some of the shows we have might be on a Disney or a Nickelodeon or something as well, but they tend to run their own shows and they don't buy as much from around the world. So we felt like we'd be a really good spot to bring some of these great shows, and also some of the classics. We like classic shows. We have shows from the 90s. We run Thomas the Tank Engine and Barney, which aren't running on major networks anymore, but they still really work for kids, and we know they're really good. So we mix those in with a lot of new shows as well.
When you guys are deciding on shows, because especially I do like the ones abroad or that come from other countries, because I feel like when I was young, I loved Sesame Street, right? But for Sesame Street, the gateway was they might have a character that comes in from somewhere who teaches you something about their culture, which is fantastic. But I think this is a bigger scale, because this is more exposure to a lot of places and a lot of countries, and I think traditions, and I think it's a really amazing way for kids to kind of start seeing the world in a different perspective. How do you guys go through the motions of picking out, curating these shows that you want to place on your network?
That is what I really like to do. And I've been in the business a while, so I know a lot of these different creators and producers, but I'm always talking to them. What do they have available? What's coming new? Screening a lot. There's always, in this place, always kids shows going around and we really look for, good quality things from good producers. Like I mentioned, Jim Henson, we trust the Henson Company really, and they've given us some of their old classics and also some of their new ones. But we also, we find really great ones working with I'll just tell you, this month, we're introducing 3 new shows. We do about 2 or 3 new ones every month, roughly, depending on the month. We'll bring in new shows. This time we have a show out of the UK, Ireland, that's actually a live action puppet mix called Wildwoods. It was on Hulu, believe it or not, and Hulu kind of backed away from young kids. So there were a few shows that they had that we jumped on that one. And it's really beautiful, and it's about a friendly Sasquatch named Cooper and a little sugar glider named Poppy, and it's unbelievably shot live action, and it's really a sweet show. It takes place in nature, so you see kids really get to feel about going outdoors and things. We also have a really cool little educational, I would call it, show called Big Words, Small Stories, and each story features a big word. So the kids, after they go through the story, they'll learn a big word. It could be exaggerate or just different words. So each of the 60 episodes is fun. You learn that. We're also launching from Jim Henson this month, the first movie that Kermit the Frog ever appeared in. It's called Billy Bunny's Animal Songs, from the 90s, but the music is incredible. It's about an hour special. So that's just, one little month for you. And I'm looking at stuff now coming in January and February. I've got some really cool stuff. I just signed today. In fact, I can tell you today, I just signed a show today. I couldn't have told you if it wasn't today. It's and you might be impressed with this. The narrator is Keira Knightley, the actress. She's narrating. She has kids, and we didn't have anything to produce this one, but it's out of the UK. It's called The Sound Collector. It's a beautiful show produced by someone called Eagle and Bat, who's a really, really great producer, animated by McKinnon and Saunders, who did the Pinocchio one that won the Academy Award. They did the animation for that. So that's coming in January. And the lead character in that is deaf.
Oh, fantastic.
Great. Yeah.
Hearing impaired.
Wow.
And it's really a beautiful show. So I'm really proud. We're the only ones going to have that in the U.S. So that's another example of some fun stuff in the way. But I love that part of the job. I really do. It's just really where I find it's hard though, because we're competing with bigger channels, so we don't have the deep pockets that one of the bigger players have. But I think our sensibilities might be a little different.
Sure.
So
I have a couple of questions actually.
Yeah.
As a grandmother, and so for the grandmothers out there, what is the target age that your shows, go after as far as the demographics like?
We really.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And my second part, you had mentioned something about technology and science type shows, those type of things. If you could elaborate a little bit more on just, what those shows are actually about for those kids in that range.
Oh, really great questions. First, we say we target kids up to 9 years old.
Oh.
So we kind of, and the reason we don't go much beyond that, because we feel like when they get beyond that, they're almost in a different world today. Although I think older kids would watch a lot of our shows, but we say we go for 2 to 9 year olds in that range is our, yeah. And we have some shows that are younger on that scale, but anyone we have that's geared up to the 6 to 9s or the older, a younger one that was in front of it you would never worry that they were in front of that show. You know what I mean? So we feel like everything on the channel has to be okay for anybody that was going to watch it. And the science and the technology, it's incredible to some of the different shows we have. There's one from Jim Henson called DOT, D-O-T, and it's about a little tech-savvy girl who has a little brother, and they go, all these adventures. It's all very tech-savvy based. We have one. I hope I can mention one. We have one called Science Max, where they actually do science experiments, live action.
That's pretty cool.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's
It is really crazy fun experiments too.
And I think this is part of it. Lovesick, we talk a lot about health. We talk about a lot of involvement. This episode's important to us because, being so closely associated with kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are so valuable. The mental health of kids, I think we don't really understand until later the impact that some of these shows and the things that you're putting your kid in front of have on them. And I think you've done a great job of kind of curating classics and then finding kind of new hidden gems. But there's a real beauty because I'm gonna try not to use any names that will get us in trouble.
Yeah, please don't.
I don't want to disrespect anybody, but there's a number of shows that I'll tell you watching with little ones where the mischievous part of it becomes negative. There's hitting, there's bad behavior, there's I wouldn't say swearing, but there are words and tones or actions that become negative for young kids. And I think you've really targeted kind of flipping that script and being conscious of what the wording and messages you send. Can you talk about kind of the mental health aspect and kind of the developmental part?
I'm glad you said that. Yes. I'm not a mental health, I know you all talk about that a lot. On a couple levels. One, we feel that parents can feel calm to have, people on this channel. They can reduce their stress about having to not be there while the kids are watching? Are they going to be okay? So that's on a macro level. But we do look at shows like that. The pace of a show is really important for a kid's mental health. If there's too much anxiety, and sometimes when they're on a place where there's an algorithm that keeps pushing shows at them, they're driven to watch more. We don't do advertising, so we're not driven by how much people watch, and we don't pick shows that maybe would get more clicks. We pick shows that might be really nice, and maybe the child will be happy with just watching one 10-minute show. They won't need to go watch another one.
Exactly.
And so that is really important. I'm actually working on a new show right now that won't be out until end of 2025. And I know, JD, you're a producer. You know how long these things take.
Yep.
But it's just get kicked off now, the production in 2 years. But it's called Hold On Gaston, and it's based on a book series out of France called The Emotions of Gaston. And it's the woman who wrote it is very much into mental health for kids and trying to let them identify. They wanted to give the kids a way they could deal with their difficult feelings. And she's into things that like breathing and connecting positivity and really having a solution where once they identify the emotion in the show, there's a little unicorn who goes through these emotions. The hair turns a different color when it's a different emotion. So the kids kind of recognize that. And the parent might say, oh, well, that's jealousy, or that's this, or that's, here. And then they kind of come up with a solution at the end to deal with it. So we are really interested in that area of mental health.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a new show. It's not, again, it won't be out for a couple of years, but we're working with the producer on that one.
But you know what? That's actually good, because a lot of kids, they don't know how to express emotions.
Correct.
So by you having a show that's actually teaching them how to recognize certain emotions, I mean, there's not a lot of shows out there that do that.
Dorothea, that's what attracted to us. Exactly that. I have never seen that either.
Right.
And I didn't realize that as much. So if you can get them to first just recognize it, and instead of being frustrated or
Right.
However they act. Yeah. So that's a new one to come from us.
That's awesome.
We're really proud to be working on that one. But mental health is important, and I think getting kids comfortable at a young age with different things like that, and not getting them too anxious. I had a mother. I always talk to people with young children, and a mother said to me the other day, she said, I don't let my 2 and 4-year-old watch this show anymore, because after the show they kind of act mean to me. And it's that they said, and I'm like, yeah, well, see, that there are things that if you don't be careful, they'll and like you said, Michael, the humor can be really edgy and mean-spirited, and humor that you may, like you said, may not be a swear word, but it will be something that you don't want doing or saying.
Well, a lot of times in some of these cartoons or stuff, and I don't want to knock anybody as a creator and somebody who writes, there's complexity to it, but I think sometimes we take adult sensibilities to children's things, and what ends up happening is, for example, yes, from the child's perspective, in this cartoon, the parent is the bad guy, right?
Right. Yep.
Which sounds kind of normal, maybe if you think of it from a disconnected portion. But what you're also sending that message to the children watching that is your parents are the bad guys, or your parent is the enemy. Now, a kid gets off, just like you were talking about, and now is mouthy or is disrespectful to their parent. And the parent may not totally get the correlation. Obviously, the mom who talked to you did. But if you look at the content, all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait, this main character is always having a problem with their parent, or the parents are always the problem. And it can be very subtle. If you're not looking at what or not fully watching with them, it's a lot going into their head, and their ability to process it or comprehend it is different.
True.
Exactly, Michael. As a writer, you understand that. I think that's where the real magic comes in, is in the writing. How can you make writing that's still entertaining without using those traps and things like that, and those gags that are not really needed for young kids. Like you said, it might work great for me or teenagers or someone a little
Mhm.
older. But yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
also, you mentioned anxiety. Having a little one in my life, watching certain things, I noticed being on the production side, and Jada and I have kind of talked about this. You start listening to how much the music ramps up, the tone of what the scenes become. They become darker and darker and darker over the course of a show. You start ramping up the music. All of a sudden, you're creating an anxiety
Yeah.
riddled kind of world for them to dive into. And then all of a sudden, the episode kind of has a quick resolution and an end. But those emotions in a child, they don't subside immediately. And it may equate to them watching more episodes, which, if your only goal as a producer is advertisers or clicks or how many they're going to watch, you may ignore that aspect or even play up that aspect subtly. I think we don't really talk about the psychological impact,
Right.
but children are so impressionable, especially, those first 4 years they say are probably the most, but from 4 to 7, which is really the main portion of your target audience, everything in their world kind of sets the stage for what's going to be their future.
That's true. And, another situation, you don't know, a lot of things start from home. And sometimes the kids, it's great that you have such wonderful programming because sometimes this is all the kids have to learn from. Because it's unfortunate, the parents may not be, it could be single parents or whatever type of parenting or guardians they have at home. But actually, sometimes this is what they need to get somewhere in life because they may not have the parents that could spend time with them to teach them what they need to know, especially emotionally and anything else.
You're right. You're right. This is this almost all of these shows have some values that they can learn, whether they're more overtly educational, like math and science, or environment. There's just so many things that they teach in these shows. Healthy living. That again, the guy I worked for, Magnus Skeving, he did LazyTown. He said the challenge is how do you make healthy lifestyle entertaining?
Mhm.
Mm.
So you have a good goal to teach someone something, but it has to be entertaining and woven in with characters and good writing and good characters, and that's the magic to make that all work.
Um,
And like you said, Michael, that age is so impressionable. I was in a classroom, a second grade classroom. I couldn't believe how smart these second graders are. They're 7 and 8.
Brilliant.
I mean, they're so bright and they can take on so much. So it is good to make sure they're innocent still too. So it's
Right.
it's good to have them exposed to, when you watch Kidstream, there's no chance they're going to get into another show that's older or something that's inappropriate either.
And that's a hard part about some of the networks, and it's no offense to them, but their algorithm and their show lineup is based on age and who's going to be home at the time or what is
Yeah.
the biggest portion of the
True.
thing.
Yep.
And so if you got say a 4 to 7 year old who's watching something, as you move into the afternoon, all of a sudden those shows are geared for 9 to 12 year olds. That's a different kind of information and different kind of entertainment. All of a sudden you go a little to the afternoon, all of a sudden they're talking about things for 11 to 13, 14 year olds. These are preteens or teens. They're targeting a different audience. All of a sudden, your 4 year old is learning things.
And we've
that-
been there.
Yeah. And as parents, I think
we've been
I
there.
think everybody's been somewhere in
Yeah.
that situation.
That's
Or
right.
I also know I've had my kids come home from somebody else's house when my kids were young. And I'm like, what is this show you guys are talking? Like, what were you watching?
Right.
Right. And that's a big problem because it's not just in your own home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a real problem. Yeah, and you're right. It's hard to know what they'll be exposed to, and maybe the other family has a big brother or big sister or something, and they're watching something.
Right.
I mean, I also
it-
think you guys are up with the times too, because I think, back when I was watching kid shows again, like it's I think kids have a bigger platform now. Like parents and adults are more open to kids' feelings and needs, and we create more like better environments lately, and schools have been open to that as well. And I think it empowers children a little more. So I think that these shows are gearing more towards what the kids. I mean, I'm learning stuff myself watching, and no joke, because it's like, oh yeah, and if my kid's coming to me about something, I'm like, that's really interesting. Where'd you hear that from? But in a good way, in a positive way, and then I start watching. So I think it's fantastic for parents as well.
Everybody learns though, because I can remember times like when the kids are at my place, and I'm always that type of grandmother where I said, "Wait, what are you watching? What are you looking at?" Because you have to, you have to monitor. But like you said, with the programs that you guys produce, maybe you don't have to do that as much. But I feel like I need to say, "Wait, what is that you're looking at?" If I hear something, wait, what did she just say? Or what
Well,
did
that's
he
like the
just say?
algorithm. It changes. So
Exactly.
you're just like,
Right.
wait, that's
So,
where you weren't watching that like
Right.
a show ago.
And math and science, I think so much
Huge.
technology has advanced in the last 20 years, right?
Absolutely.
If you just look at the change in technology from 1 or 2 generations of kids, what they have available to them, but also what we now know. I mean, the things we know about brains, the things we know about science and experiments, the things we know about physics and math. So it's beautiful that your shows are diving into science and making those things accessible,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times, especially in lower income neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
they may not always get those resources in public school settings or in their regular environment. You're giving them access to things that is modern technology that even some of their textbooks don't have the capacity to cover.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these creators, I go back to them. They're all over the world, and they really care about kids. And usually there's something in each show that they're trying to instill, whether it's science or math, or it's something about social and emotional learning, and different different ways just to react to things. So you're right. There's so much they can get out of them. And it's nice to know. And what you mentioned, Dorothea, we really don't like shows that if you're in the background, you're not going to like. We would stay away from a show that we thought maybe if it was on, we'd want the parent or the grandparent in the background to think, okay, I don't mind having that in the background. It's not something that's,
Mm-hmm.
we really look at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other piece, because you don't want to feel like that you have to be monitored, you have to monitor them every step of the way. You want them to learn, you want them to be of interest. And I like your concept because it's global. So you're bringing in people from all over the world to contribute to the education of the kids, and they really care about what the kids are watching. And all shows are not like that, but this is very diverse because it's people from all over the globe.
Exactly. And we have a show that I was actually involved in the production on called Book Hungry Bears. It's a co-production between Canada, New Zealand, and China. And it has books from all over the world, and it's geared for young kids to learn about shared reading, because when young kids 2 to 4, they don't actually read, they're read to. They're looking at picture books at that age. And in each one of these 50 odd episodes, the bears come together, and they're all different bears. They're diverse bears. We have, different, so you feel real diversity, and they sit around and read a book together. And that's how you get young people into books, by having, sharing a book. It was called shared reading. This is the creator of that show really wanted to celebrate shared reading, and how important that is at a young age, that they get read to.
Right.
So that's one of our younger series. But yeah, and it's very diverse. Like I said, books from all over the world, and some really great ones from the U.S. Scholastic has given us some books to read. Macmillan, some of the really big publishers have books, so that's really nice.
I think there's an interesting tactile thing that some of those old shows have. And I think that's one of the real admirable things about the Jim Henson Company. There's something about puppets. There's something about the imagination that I think gets associated. I think all of us grew up with that. And then kind of on mainstream, we've lost a lot of that, right? And we've lost some of that magic. And so one of the things, looking through all of your content, that I was kind of I don't know, heartwarmed over and kind of nostalgic for was this imaginative, kind of connective, historic kind of puppeteering and a different way of interaction, but also it's not all old and kind of, it doesn't feel dusty or classic, right? It feels just
Fresh.
kind of like modern and but with a little bit of nostalgia and good content.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice to hear you feel that way. I love to hear that because that's kind of what we want to do. We want to give you that feel, and we do love those different characters and the different things you get from some of these classic shows that were filmed. I mean, you think about Jim Henson. You're right. What an amazing creative. And his daughter is running the company now, and it's LA based, but they've been doing stuff for years. One of the real treasures here from the U.S. and kids TV for sure. So we really love them, and we like I said, we're bringing that new one from you got to see when it comes out next month. Billy Bunny's Animal Songs. The music on that is incredible. I can't believe it's from the 90s. So
Yeah, what are some of I know you. Like, give me maybe 2 shows that people should be looking for their kids in each category, and then also across kind of like live action, maybe puppetry, and then kind of animation.
Well, it's funny you say that. Live action, one of our big properties I haven't mentioned, I call it a property because there's so many shows, are the Wiggles.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bunch of stuff from the Wiggles. The Wiggles are one of the biggest live acts in the world. In fact, I've heard they were just here in the U.S. touring, and they did. I heard their tickets sold as fast as some of the big rock bands. I mean, that's how they're really that well known. And they just did a big special. We just put it up this month called the Wiggles Fruit Salad Big Show, and that's like a long action one. And I don't know if I could share it. They just recorded for us 2 25-second bespoke things about Kidstream. They were so nice in the studio. They gave it to us. I'll send it to you, or I could even share it on the screen if you.
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Could I?
Yeah.
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
G'day, Kidstream families. We're the Wiggles.
You know, our friends at Kidstream genuinely care about providing better TV for children and have curated a top-rated library of worry-free and enriching shows for children of all ages.
Try Kidstream for free. Let's wiggle together at kidstream.tv.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
I love it. Love it.
Thanks for letting me share that. Let me get my camera back. There you go.
It's so
I
colorful.
remember the kids
too.
watched. The kids used to
Isn't
watch
it?
the Wiggles.
They did.
Yeah.
It is so colorful too. I love it. Yeah, I love
Really
it.
great. So anyway, in the live action category, that's one that I'd love you to see. We also have a really cool one called Curious Crafting out of Canada. You got to check that out. The person that does the crafts there is just amazing. Her name is Mandalisa Watts, and she's incredible with kids and does these short episodes where they can really learn something about crafting. I would say those are on the live action.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We definitely want you to see those.
Yeah, my grandkids are definitely into crafting.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
My
that's
daughter is
cute.
like obsessed with
Yes.
crafting.
Cute.
I'm glad you asked.
I love that.
Let me see on maybe the one on the older kids block. We have a collection of live action animal ones. It's not just for older ones, but it's pretty fun for them. Called Coyote. There's a guy named Coyote Peterson who had done a couple shows for the Animal Channel.
Ooh.
But he gave us a bunch of his episodes. We curated them that we thought they'd be better for young kids, and we curated them by theme of animals. And we have our own, exclusive Coyote Peterson Kidstream collection, where you can learn about sharks, or sometimes the turtles, sometimes lizards, all sorts of different animals that he is really good with kids too, in animals.
Oh, that is so cool. Now, my 3-year-old granddaughter, she loves animals. So this would be a show she would definitely like.
Yeah, and Coyote's great. He really knows how to teach to kids, and he does it all himself. It's not a high budget production, but he's there with the animals, and really fun. And we have for a comedy, you always think of these comedies that's funny. We have a brand new one called Circle Square out of the UK that no one else has, I think. It got nominated in the UK for one of the top animated kids shows. Didn't win, but it was in the top couple. Big festival in Europe. And we have it. It's called Circle Square, and it's beautiful artwork. Has kind of a really modern image to it. I think older kids would really go to it, but there's nothing objectionable, no objectionable humor. And we also have another classic for older kids called Shaun the Sheep. I don't know if you know that one, but it's a part of Aardman Animation, and they do a lot of really fun animations. It's model animation, so a different kind of. We do love model animation, and that one, the one I mentioned with the Keira Knightley's doing, the Sound Collector, that's model animation too. That's what that company McKinnon and Saunders is known for in Aardman. So that is really good. And I guess for younger kids, I'm trying to think which ones I would. There's so many. There is. I'm going to show you one of my favorites here.
When you say younger, are you referring to the 2-year-olds and
2 to 4, maybe 2 to 5?
Okay.
We have one that's really popular called Kate and Mim Mim. That's really popular about a little girl who has this imaginary rabbit that she goes on adventures with. That is really popular on our channel. We have one called Ella the Elephant. That is an amazing show. And oh gosh, I just have so many. I could.
Not a bad problem to have, right? I know, it's amazing.
Here's a good one from Jim Henson that I didn't mention. And you talked about kids calming down and mental health, and Jim Henson created one called the Pajamanals. It's all puppets, but pajama animals, and it's all about very relaxing, and it's good at bedtime. So you don't want sometimes you want to show some children some stuff. And it's really a nice one for young children too that they let us have on our channel. We're really happy about. But there's so many I didn't mention. And
we have to tune in. We have to watch.
we don't force them. We don't have algorithms. We let kids go their own way. They may like this show and go to this one next. We don't ask. We don't, because they watch this. We push this one at them.
Right.
We just let them, because everybody's different. Every child has different tastes. We have about 75 different series on there now. Wow. And like I said, we're constantly adding them. Usually there's about 20 episodes of each or something like that. So, all
right, I'm going to ask you a different question. What is your guilty pleasure? What's the kid show that every once in a while you turn on, or if you turn it on and watch part of it, you'd end up not turning it off?
Oh boy, that's a good one. I'm gonna,
that happens.
That
happens.
Yeah.
I would say LazyTown, only because LazyTown is this really cool show that was actually produced back 2004, 2007, around there. It came out. And it's really funny. It's got live action, it's got animation and puppets all in the same show, and it's just really well written. And I'm just surprised. I knew the creator. I still know him. His name is Magnus Skeving. One thing he said when he created this, he wanted something that would not get old. I remember he told me this. He's the guy from Iceland. He's the creator from Iceland.
Okay.
And he said, I want to make a show that when they watch it 20 years from now, it won't feel old. I don't want to have, I can remember him saying in his Icelandic accent, I don't want to have the hair that they look, or their clothes. So he has costumes and cases. So it looks like it could have been filmed today. And that's one thing I really like about it too. But there are longer episodes. There's an original song in each episode. And it's just a really fun show. I guess that would be my guilty pleasure.
And the athleticism in that show, by the way.
You've seen that? Okay.
Oh yeah, a lot. And so what I'll tell you is the athleticism
that's his guilty
in that
pleasure
show.
too.
Listen,
he's telling himself.
I have no shame. I watched kid shows with my kids and raising other kids. I've worked with kids for 25 years. I volunteer in a kids hospital, so I look at kids entertainment all the time because I think it's really important. Because as much as I love the entertainment I do as an adult, the impact you have on kids and the long-term kind of it's like anything. Anything you do over a long period of time, the growth is exponential, right? So for kids, this is a huge impact point. And so I was always really conscious of what my kids at home took in, but also, as a coach, I was fascinated when I would listen to kids at practice, or I would listen to what's going on. What are you guys watching? What are you into? And then sometimes I'm like, you're watching what? And then I would be like, hey, hold on. And then I'm like, do your parents know you're watching? Right? Or I'd watch, every once in a while I'd go and I'd watch stuff because it was a great way to communicate with kids, right? Because it comes part of their language. So anytime, especially as a coach or as a teacher, anytime I could take something that they are passionate about and turn it into the thing I want them to advance in, it was a great connective tissue. So, I mean, listen, LazyTown had a lot of athleticism, and you can call me whatever you want. I've watched Thomas the Tank Engine. I've probably seen every.
Oh, I've
episode,
seen all the Thomas the Tank.
That was my son's.
I got really excited when my son got into it. I was like, yeah, we should watch it.
And then
I've already been watching it.
20 years later to introduce it to another young child.
Yeah.
That I was taking care of. Like,
and it's the same, but it's amazing. That's some of the timeless stuff that I think we talked about, because that's stuff you can keep watching over and over. And again, when I was younger, watching it, and then seeing when my kids were a certain age and they were watching, I was like, I remember this episode. And you sit there and watch it the same way as they do. I think it's great also just, there's a lot of schools now that are able to incorporate similar shows like this into programming and stuff, into their curriculum and stuff, because you couldn't, we didn't always have that because people would be like, no, TV. But now it's like we can use these platforms now to also bring into the educational system, which I think is amazing.
It could also encourage family time.
Definitely
shows you can encourage family time, which that's something you need to bring back.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like where you can sit down together as a family and enjoy something as a family. So we need more of that.
We have a lot of episodes that we feel are that way. And I agree with you. It's so great to get shows that you feel like you wouldn't mind watching with your kids too.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody sit around. Yeah. I hope we have a lot of them. We haven't. Yeah. We're trying to continually address that bit, find ones that we think that parents, we have one called an old classic we brought out for the holidays from Jim Henson, another one called Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which is one that went back. I understand that was big on HBO back in the 70s, when it came out in the 70s. And we brought that back because a lot of grandparents, were feeding back to us that they loved that. That was one of the ones they loved. And they love to watch that together. Right. So that one, it's a little longer. It's like about a 45-minute mini movie kind of.
And I love to watch the shows with my grandkids anyway, because sometimes I can sit there and just to have them explain it, even though I can see for myself and see what's happening, but just to say to them, so what are they actually doing? Or what is the message behind? Just to see,
Or just when they get excited.
Yeah,
and
they
like,
get excited. So I want them to tell me about it. And I like that because it's a show that they can interpret and tell me what it is that I'm actually watching.
That's a great tool. I like that.
Yes.
Have them explain it to you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of them they really do have to explain to.
No, but that's part of the beauty is I love that engagement, right? Like when your kids explain to you, it really drives home points, but also you get to see how their brain works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's one of the things about being a parent, being a aunt, uncle, grandparent, like having that extended view.
True.
And then seeing what their brain does with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how are they interpreting this information? Now, do you have a group of young people or young families that you kind of lean on as some of your testers or people that you run things by?
Well,
I hear you talk about a lot of that.
Well,
like
yeah. My co-founder Jordan has young children. He is a 4 and a 6, so we definitely rely, or 3 and a 6. We definitely rely on real kids a lot, but we don't have a formal group that we're doing. But we're always looking for feedback on new shows, how they've done. If it's a show that's been on, we can tell how it does. But we are sharing that with families with young children often. If there's a show that we don't know, something new, we'd like to see it tested. I like to find them vetted by really good broadcasters. Like a show. There's a channel in Canada called TVO, TV Ontario, that's really high educational quality. And I know if it's on that channel, it's been vetted,
Right.
or or something. So that gives me a little comfort on a new show.
Mhm.
But you're right, we do. I know Jordan is always sharing it with young kids and his kids, friends and things like that. So we are as much as we can.
Yeah, real-time feedback. I think there's nothing like it. I keep hearing you talk about the feedback you get because you seem to have taken down the wall between your audience and yourselves, right? Which I think is the most empowering part. The technology's there now for us to
Mhm.
Yeah.
listen to people. And it's one of the ways that you create safe spaces, right? Because you get a real perspective on how people are interacting. Like you said, you brought back this show that grandparents wanted to share with their grandchildren. And I think that's so powerful.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with you. We love getting feedback. We're just really humbled that we get such good feedback from people, and that's really important to us. So even one, we don't want any shows that feel like someone could be offended by or taken the. I mean, there's always somebody that's not happy with something, but overwhelmingly we get pretty good feedback from the shows that we have out there.
Okay, now you mentioned the Keira Knightley show. What
Yeah.
else do you have coming up that is there anything else that you can share with us that people should be looking out for that's coming up that
Well,
See, I see the smile.
Hey, boy, you really, I tell you, this is, again, just signed today. No one, you're breaking the news. We also got a cute little mini movie out of the UK that's very popular there, called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And that's a really cute one that we're going to put on very soon. And then I got one on the same time. I've signed one that's for very young children out of Holland, out of the Netherlands.
Oh.
There's no dialogue, and it's very visual for the really youngest kids, really well tested over there and really well thought of in Europe. It's very visual. It's called Tic Tac, not TikTok, not to be confused with TikTok.
Right. Which we don't want to leave your kids.
Yeah. We don't want your kids on there.
I didn't say that. It's called Tic Tac. It's out of Holland or the Netherlands. Some really good broadcasters have vetted that, and it's really good for young children. Very visual, where they'll see images, really slow, really comforting music, really, really beautiful show too. That's another one that we just signed. So you've gotten a lot out of. I didn't expect to share any of those. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Dean.
Me
and for
too.
me, I mean, I think there's you've touched on so many categories. One of the
Yes.
things, I mean, people with hearing impairments, right? Like that is a group of young kids in this world who did not really have good representation for such a long time. And I think that's so important because it can bring families together, especially if the child has a hearing impairment and the parents don't have that. You're in a process where you have to learn how to communicate, right? And in a way you may not have ever imagined. And I think it's so important that families learn sign language. There's communities. I wish we would teach young kids that. So I think there's a lot of help in watching shows like that. Those are ways that you can transition and kind of include people in our society that didn't get the support that I really feel like they needed over the years. And I think there's real value in some of these shows that people may not have heard of previously, but now can celebrate together.
Good point.
Thanks for bringing that out. Yeah, I agree. That when I heard about that show and that child or those people that weren't really represented so much. I hadn't seen much in kids TV. So these producers did an amazing job. Wait till you see this show. It's really stunning. This one.
I'm gonna be
I'm
diving.
kind of excited. I
I'm
wanna watch
down
it.
the rabbit hole of all your stuff. So we
Me
all
too.
know that even though I don't have a little one in my house at the current time, like obviously I'm going to be watching a lot of television that I didn't see, but I think there's some great beauty, and I do think for adults, sometimes step back.
Agreed.
Embrace the childhood inside you and
That's
kind of go
true.
back and look at some of the stuff, but also look
Mhm.
what's out there because the kids that are in your life, you want to know what's safe that's out there, or
Yeah.
what you should be
Mm-hmm.
kind of leaning towards, and what you could be sharing with people. It's a great way to
That's
connect
true.
and kind of stay relevant with where technology and children are.
That's true. And I have a question in reference
Mhm.
to how do you go about recruiting your voiceover people?
It's a good question. We really haven't done much of that ourselves. We tend to get them. They'll do that for us if it's a show from France, for example. Good question. There are a couple. It's funny you asked that. There's a couple I found in other countries that have never been turned into English yet.
Mhm.
And I looked at trying to do that myself, and it's pretty expensive to get that done. So I haven't done, but usually when we license them from the company, the production company, they'll take on that expense on our part. So they'll find, they tend to, I understand Canadian, a lot of good studios in Canada to dub into English, because their English is a little more neutral than the British English. But we have some shows that are more British English too.
Well, I asked that because just so you know, Miss Jada here, she does voiceovers too. Just so you know.
Jada, we got to talk after. We have,
Just Jada, huh?
Just
No love over here on this side. Okay, all right. I see you, Dot. We're gonna have a quiet conversation after.
I really could use some really good talent on some stuff. It's funny, we're talking about one out of Argentina now. So, okay, I'll glad to know, because we're starting to get into that. We're just starting to look at that.
Yeah.
So.
She doesn't like to promote that as much as you can see, but we all know. And we all have pretty good voices, and so does Michael and myself. But this one right here, yes.
No, I respect that, the art of the voiceover and trying to match it. I've seen it happen in a studio. I've actually been there when they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to have, an interaction, especially if you can get the actors in the same room, feeding back with one's playing one character and one's doing the other. It's really cool.
It's awesome.
Well, I'm just super excited about the channel, because
I am too.
I just think you're doing great things. You're bringing great things. And if I can, as a parent, sit here and be proud of the things that my kids are, if I'm giving them screen time and that's what they're going to, I just want to say thank you, because, makes a happy parent too if I need to just sit them in front of them.
And a happy grandparent or guardian, and whoever's watching with the kids or whoever's not watching, and they know that they can leave the room, let the kids watch, and keep doing whatever they're doing. So.
And I can watch the classics myself.
Right.
So,
Well, and listen, if you're somebody who doesn't have kids, right? If you're an aunt, an uncle, sometimes a grandparent who hasn't been around a lot, right?
Right.
To know you have a safe space,
Yeah.
a safe place to go find content where you're not worried about what's going to roll in or what the next commercial is going to be, or because sometimes it's not even the content, it's the stuff that's in between that can be
True.
Yep.
eye-opening is the word I'm going to use in the most polite sense. If you don't know, like as an aunt or uncle, if you don't know what's going on, to have a safe space, that's a resource. That's an ace in the hole. Because listen, everybody who's ever watched a kid knows every once in a while, you're a little overwhelmed and they're a little wild. And the only thing you need is some kind of good, healthy, kind of quiet place for them to sit down for a moment.
Yeah.
You have a safe space, man. That's everything.
Maybe get enriched at the same time and learn something or get some good things. Yeah, one thing, I just to tell your viewers where to find us.
Yes.
We're available in a number of different ways. We're available. You can see it on our app if you ever want to just find out where to find us. Kidstream, oneword.tv. But we're available as an Amazon Prime Video channel. If you have Amazon, you can get us as a subscription channel. You can also get us from Cox and Comcast. You can, talk into your voice remote and get a Kidstream. It's important to say that. We're on Roku. We're in the App Store, both the Google Play and the Apple Store. And we're starting another thing. You asked about new things, Michael. We're about to sign a deal with a company called Curiosity Stream. Curiosity Stream is actually for older people. It's not older, but not kids. It's a channel that's based on. It's called the Global Entertainment Brand for people who want to know more. There's documentaries, all sorts of cool things, live action history, travel. adventure, science, nature, but it started by the gentleman, John Hendricks, who started Discovery Channel. And they're going to offer us, so if you go to Curiosity Stream and buy them, you can have Kidstream added in their bundle too now.
Okay.
So
Terrific.
we thought it was a good brand to align with, since they're into really good things as well. No
Right.
commercials,
That's
no
incredible.
ads. And so you can
That's
find us all
fantastic.
over.
I think it's so important. I think it's great. I think what you're doing is amazing, Dean. I cannot thank
It
you
is.
enough, and
Yes.
I'm really thrilled to share you with our audience.
Yeah.
When we talk about what we do here and trying to build community and build places for people to come together and connect, right?
Mhm.
Kids are so important, and so often they get left behind when we have these discussions. And you've created a safe space for that, and I just want to thank you and commend you for it.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. Jada, thank you for having me. And Dorothy, I appreciate you guys having me. I appreciate all the really good questions you guys asked too. It really made it all come to life. So thank you.
Really
Thank you for joining us.
And
Thank you.
I know people are going to love it. So I'm glad people were able to be part of Lovesick Podcast and kind of get a new insight for kids. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks
Okay.
for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.